We're honored to have Rabbi Wolf from Chicago to address us today. Rabbi Wolf is the menahel of the yeshivas in Chicago. Cheder. Mike is yours.
Chaim. I am told that if it goes a minute after 9:30, they don't taste it. They don't give it up. It's not true. I saw the sign out there. It said exactly 9:15 or 8:15 to 9:30. Anyway, l'chaim. First of all, we can truly say good yontif for this special day. But first is Pesach B'Kavod Achsanya, coming back here after 42 years and seeing Baruch Hashem the growth of the Meises and Mistametz Teichei Kibare, and it's beautiful to see how many more Yungalaita are here. It's such a tremendous change and an increase from the past. So I'm sure that it will continue to grow in Yetz Hashem. And it's, as it was in the past, and it is now L'Shem U'Tiferes for Chabad, I'm sure it will continue being so. But there's a Lashon Kehelas, U'Lesimcha Ma'azayosa. What is the significance and the purpose of this joyous occasion? It's time if a person would walk in from the street, not knowing the purpose of this gathering, and you'll see people sitting together and celebrating. His question will be, what's going on? And if he's going to be told it's an anniversary, he'll ask, where's the Bala Simcha? And the answer, of course, is that we're all Bala Simcha. We're all a chelik of this 90th anniversary Simcha of the Rebbe and the Rebbetzin. But nevertheless, I heard from Mashpia in Yerushalayim, Chaim Shalom Deitch. So he related, he didn't actually say who that shliach was, but there was a shliach who walked into the Rebbe who used to travel here and there and Farbrengen with Jungalite, with people, with Shabbatons and whatnot, and he asked the Rebbe for guidance, hadracha. And then he asked the Rebbe, obviously the Rebbe told me something, but then he asked the Rebbe, what about the pnimistik in Farbrengen? So the Rebbe smiled, and the Rebbe said, pnimistik Farbrengen, darf neffen in der Cheder. You want a Pnimi Sikha Farbrengen, you have to open up the books, look at the Torah. What does that really mean? I mean, a Farbrengen is not a Shir Chassidus, and a Shir Chassidus is not a Farbrengen. So what exactly did the Rebbe mean? Well, when it comes to Inyanim of Yerushalayim, even in Sefer Atanya, you're allowed to add Pirushim. So here, the Rebbe gave guidance regarding the Farbrengen. So perhaps this is what the Rebbe meant. You know, sometimes we can sit together by a Farbrengen and we walk away and we question, what did I walk away with? And what is the true meaning of a Chassidish Farbrengen? So what I think the Rebbe meant was that if you take an Inyan of Chassidus, as Chassidim, we study Chassidus, and we're able to look at it and learn from it and see how it talks to us, that is a Chassidish Farbrengen. That in Yonim of Chassidus that we study with, we're able to apply it to our Adhagi Yom Yomis. That is what a Chassidish Farbrengen is all about. I'm sure there's much more to a Chassidish Farbrengen, but regarding this matter, that if we're able to take an Indian and apply it to ourselves, and in our case, we're talking about 90 years, what's the significance of that? How do we apply it to ourselves? And we're told that B'yemes, this is our Simcha. This is our day. We're rejoicing not at Simcha von Yener, somebody else's Simcha. Says unser Tate, like the famous story of the famous Chassid of Michal the Alta, who read somebody's letter, told the story about a letter that was written that was received by a farmer in Yeshuvnik, and he had the Malamed read it for him, and he read in the letter that my father died. So who fainted? Not the guy who read the letter. The Tate. It was the other person's father that fainted. So says ein Tate, so therefore he fainted. The one who read it didn't faint. So he used it that if you're learning Chassidus and you're involved in Chassidus, it has to be in such a way. He said, ein Tate. It's your issue, your Inyan. So back to our Inyan of 90 years, how does that really talk to us? I want to share with you a tremendous story which I heard, which really underscores our connection to this day and why it's really our Simcha and how it really talks to us. So there's a story told. There was the famous chassid of the Alter Rebbe by the name of Reb Pinchas Reizes. There's the famous Mamorim that he recorded from the Mamorim of the Alter Rebbe. But anyway, his father was Reb Henich Schick from Shlov. They say he was a Talmud Chover of the Vilna Gaon. He was a great man, a Gana Goinim. And when he heard that his son Reb Pinchas became a chassid, as was, I guess, the custom in those days, by Misnagdim, he sat Shiva after his son. Can you imagine? But the father remains the father, and several months later, he kept on hearing that his son, which he thought, who knows, went off the derech, he could live a youth was davent and learned, he davens and he learns, and he's conducting himself like a Flumayid. So he sent a message to his son that he would really like to meet with him again and see and talk to him. And his son obviously responded, and he came to meet with his father, and his father looks at him, and his father asks him, tell me, what is going on? I heard such a Lashon Hara against the Kat, against the Chassidim. What exactly is going on? So the Pinchas Reizes started to sing the praises first of the Baal Shem Tov and the Maggid, and then about the Alter Rebbe. You should know that the Alter Rebbe that you people are bad-mouthing is a Ga'ana Goiner, and he's an incredible person, a Yid, was his HaKodesh, the Torah, whatever he told him about Alter Rebbe, the greatness, to the extent that he was so inspired that he told his son that if there'll be an opportunity that Alter Rebbe is going to be visiting, not in this city, because he didn't want to risk suddenly having any connection, but he said if it's in those days, there was no social media, and contacting somebody 50 kilometers away could have taken place a week or 2 weeks, and then pictures were not going around. So he said, you know what, when he's going to be somewhere 50, 100 kilometers away, let me know beforehand, and I'll spend some time. And sure enough, an opportunity arrived, and several weeks or months later, the Alter Rebbe was going to spend a Shabbos in a kehillah of Chassidim, like 50 or 100 kilometers away. So in an anonymous way, the Penach Shklov arrived, and he was going to see the Hug of the Alter Rebbe, and that would perhaps convince him that at least that his son is going on the right path. Of course, the Alter Rebbe came, and how the Alter Rebbe spoke Chassidus, and how the Alter Rebbe davened. It was something which was to him out of the world, and he saw in front of him a giant among giants, to the extent that Motzei Shabbos, he was so inspired that he walked over to the Alter Rebbe's door, knocked on the door, and he walks into the Alter Rebbe's room, and he says to him, Tikocheni no tachas knofecha. Take me under your wings. I want to be one of your people. Your chassid. So the Alter Rebbe, it's known that when the Alter Rebbe sat by Yechidus, he had 2 candles on the table, and he put his hand over his forehead for a minute or two, and he raised his holy head, and he said, Der Payet Zokt, there's a Sefer Oitzet Tfilas Yisrael, and in that Sefer you have a collection of prayers divided for the various occasions during the year. I understand it's either Shabbos before Shavuos or Shabbos after Shavuos, and he says over there the following. That's what the Alter Rebbe is telling this giant, Reb Henach Schick from Shklov, who wants to be his chassid. And he says, it says over there, the Payet Zok, Tita Elam Abba, Misham Yipored Nishmas Achsidim, the mortar of Elam Haba. That is where the neshamas of Chassidim are molded. Wo soll achton Reb Henach, als ihr seid nicht von dem Lehm geknoten? I can't help you. You're not molded from that clay, from that Tita Elam Abba. Now, if you stop and think about what the Alter Rebbe said over here, that this great person who's coming to beg the Alter Rebbe, I want to be one of yours. And the Alter Rebbe tells him, I'm sorry, I can't accept you. And he remained a good friend. He remained not a misnagid, but he wasn't a chassid. But the main thing is that Alter Rebbe did not accept him. And here we have our Rebbe that says, Beper Mole, which we never heard from any of the other Rebbeim. Ich habe sich verbunden mit euch, und ihr sich verbunden mit mir. We never heard such lashonos from the Rebbeim. And who is he saying it to? Me and you and everyone around the table. So if we can just imagine the schus gadol that we have, that at uns hereingenommen in Karahot, the Rebbe brought us into his immediate circle. Not like Reb Henach Schick from Shklov. But the Rebbe said, we are one. So it comes such a day of Yud Daled Kislev, where the Rebbe said such words. And he told us that we're part of him, which none of the Rebbeim ever said such a thing. The Alter Rebbe, Reb Henach Schick from Shklov, such a great God, he didn't accept it. And us, the Rebbe accepted. And if you take it a step further, whoever we read, Divrei Yemei Chassidim, there was the Baal Shem Tov. The Baal Shem Tov once sent his Talmud and Talmidim, I think it was 1 or 2 or 3, the Greise Shlichus. And they had to make a certain Shlichus to be Mesaken Nishamas, the Baal Shem Tov sent, and they had to make tremendous preparations with fasting in Yom Kippur. And who did he send? The greatest of his Talmidim. Then throughout the generations, you talk about the great chassid, Reb Hillel Parasha. Reb Hillel Parasha was a Cheder. One of the single ones of his generation that had shlichus from his Rebbe, from the Tzemach Tzedek, first from the Mittler Rebbe, then the Tzemach Tzedek. And then even later on, the whole union of shlichus was 1 or 2 Yechidus schools. The Shadaren of the Friedrich Rebbe, whether it was the Ben Shem Tov, and then there was another 1 or 2. We're talking about, off the finger, comes the Rebbe, and he said, we can all be shluchim. And the Rebbe sends out thousands of shluchim throughout the whole world. And he says, it's shluchim shalodam k'meisei. And he brings even a raya al piniglu, what means shluchim shalodam k'meisei. The famous Rabbi Yosef Engel, the diagus of shlichus. So look what's happening here. that the Rebbe in this Ikvis in the Mashiach, in Rishonim Kamaloche, if the ones that preceded us were such great people, the Rebbe came and he gave us those koiches and injected in us those koiches that we can be an Eidik Tosha that is representing the Rebbe, and not just that. The Rebbe told us specifically what our shlichus is. Pasha to bring Mashiach. Pasha to realize this dream, this aliyas neshama of the Baal Shem Tov. Never before was there a time that Chassidus and Yiddishkeit, a direct shlichus from the Rebbe, should reach Pasha the whole Katzvah table. And if you want the biggest raya, you can look at this continent over here. If it is a continent, not a continent, Australia, was no tutzach. What happened in the last 50, 60 years, beginning with Reb Zalman, and then with the Reb Zalman, Reb Nachum Zalman, and then, of course, Rabbi Groner, who came here, who I spent so many nights listening to Rabbi Groner. We have a tremendous host. So if somebody comes along and it says, Simcha zu, mazu weise, what do you mean? It's our simcha. It's unser tate. It's something that the Rebbe included us in everything that has to be in Baal Shem's Kinyan. So we're sitting around the table, and the time is in the Zeit is air quotes. We're told it's 9:30, not even 9:31. So we have to say l'chaim, we have to sing an anigna, and Posh it have to be the simcha on such a day. Not that it's just, it's our simcha. It's unser Inyan. L'chaim, l'chaim. It's a Boduk Menuse that if we will not say L'chaim together, the inspiration will not be there. They are minim b'chsidim that has to come together with L'chaim. I don't even see a bottle on the table. What about everyone else? Over there, hidden in the corner. L'chaim. But the truth is that every year we celebrate Yud Daled Kislev. So Take, it's a very special year. It's 90 years. But it's really a celebration that we have every year. So L'chaim, the question is there something more this year over every other year? So I didn't see the Sikha, but I heard it from a Mashpia, and he said that he saw a Sikha from Rebbe that the Rebbe talks about. It was Purim time, and the Rebbe spoke on the Maimer from Zochas HaSha'aseh L'cha Amalek. And the Rebbe said that it's interesting that the Mamorim of Zochas HaSha'aseh L'cha Amalek was said by every one of the Rabbeim, and not only once, but even several times. And L'chair, it's not necessarily that we're able to notice in every Maimer a Chiddush, although Ein Beis HaMedrash B'loi Chiddush, but we don't necessarily see a Maila or Chiddush in one Maimer over the other. And then the Rebbe said, the Rebbe said that every Nasi B'deirei injected in his Maimer of Zocher, es HaSha'aseh L'cha Amalek, the wherewithal, the koyach that we need for that generation to overcome the Amalek of that specific generation. Which means that the Rabbeim were able, through their Mamorim, through their Divrei Chassidus, they were able to address those in Yonim that are needed, that we need as Chassidim, to overcome the difficulties that we have. I don't mean lavdafka enemies, but we have in Yonim Pnimim, and we have our own struggles, and then there's general struggles, and then there's community issues. So the Rabbeim, through their Mamor Chassidus, especially the Maimar of Zochas HaSha'aseh L'cha Amalek, they gave that koyach to be able to overcome in that specific time. If Yud Daled Kislev is a time of iskashres, as ich hab sich verbunden mit euch und ihr sich verbunden mit mir, und wir werden beide ausmachen, Agule Shleime, so today, on the 90th birthday or date, that we are celebrating that Nekudah, so today we have the koiches more than ever before, Mailam B'Kodesh, to internalize this message. And the message has to be something that we're able to go away from this table and say, you know what, that tomorrow will not be the same like today. That tomorrow, as a result of Yud Daled Kislev, we're able to get a certain hadrocha, a certain insight, rather, into our iskashas to the Rebbe that could be translated into a davar mamashi. If you look into the earliest siches that the Rebbe spoke after Yud Shvat Tavshin Yud, the Rebbe mentioned Daled Eifanim Iskashas. And one of the Eifanim that the Rebbe said is Asiyas Pu'ulis, of being involved in those Pu'ulis that the Rebbe demanded and wanted us to be involved. And then the Rebbe said about Limud Terasei, learning the Teres of the Rebbe. And the next thing he said, Tzir Panov and Alich Alatzin, to be Mishtateach, Mishtatech Alatzin. But these are the foreign yonim that, when it comes to his kashrus, more than any one of the other Rabbeim, the Rebbe wrote the Shulchan Aruch on his kashrus. So it comes a time of Yud Daled Kislev, all of these foreign yonim of Limud Terasei, Asiyas Peleisov, it's a gewaltige time to be able to strengthen ourselves in these inyanim, and by doing so, we're becoming mekusha to the Rebbe. I want to tell you that it was Chav Cheshvan, I think it was, and we had a Farbrengen among our shluchim in Chicago. We have about 55 shluchim in the state of Illinois, and there are about 45 meisters. There's Chabad houses and shul and meisters Cheder, high schools, and what you want. It's like we have about 300,000 people, close to 300,000 people in the state of Illinois. So b'meshach all these years, there's a whole, so many meisters and shluchim and so on. So one of the Jungelite mentioned that he remembers he was sitting with Reb Mendel Futterfass in Kfar Chabad, and he went to ask him pshat in a maimer, it was a Talmud, and Reb Mendel Futterfass, like by heart, like rattled it off as if he was learning it the other day. So he asked, he was so nispal that he didn't even have to look into the Sefer, and it was not some maimer that usually people know, they learn 25 times, it's a mugadik maimer, there's a maimer in Samach Vav. So he asked him, when did you learn this? So he said, about 30 years ago. He said, and you still remember it? He said, what do you mean I remember it? I learned that maimer 100 times. So by this Farbrengen that we had among the shluchim, we decided that everyone should pick a maimer from the Rebbe, and that maimer for the next till Chof Bei Shvat, they picked, it was like 90 days, something till Chof Bei Shvat, from Chof Cheshvan to Chof Bei Shvat, that we should take a maimer, everyone a certain maimer, and that maimer should review whether it's before davening, whether it's after davening, whatever the case is, that maimer should review for the next 90 days. And I thought that maybe it's going to last 5 days. But I keep on asking with my connections, and guys are doing it. And you know what? It's Peir Shinoi. When you learn the Rebbe's Mamavit, and you study it, and you internalize it, and you review it once, and twice, and 3 times, and 5 times, first of all, it's Peir on your machshava. Even if you won't study it inside, but you think about it day after day, it has a certain impact on your machshava. So, in these inyanim of limud terase shel harav, and being involved in the peulos and the mitzvahim of the Rebbe is something, a gewaldige thing. Whoever remembers in New York, I'm not talking about shluchim, I'm talking about Chassidus. We're all sitting over here, Chassidus Shabbat Batim. So remember the Chassidus Balabatim in Crown Heights, a Zeli Katzman. You're talking about a Chaim, Zeli Katzman, a Filachai Kochanim. These were Chassidus Balabatim that knew that every Sunday they're not working, they have to get involved in Mitzvah. And they looked like Chassidim, they acted like Chassidim, they dressed like Chassidim. They were Balabatim, they were not Rabbanim, they were not Shluchim. But you will be able to look up at them as these are the Chassidish Yidden. So, Al Kapanim, this is a way that we can change the reality that we're in. Yoda Inish Benafsha, we know, it's after Gimel Tammuz. So we have to question ourselves, and not just question, do Pa'ulas how to strengthen our attachments to the Rebbe. If we learn Chassidus every day, and we think of a certain amount of Chassidus every day, that is part of being the Kushitz of Rebbe. And that is what is something that we can do, especially on a chota for Yud Daled. We're talking about changing a certain reality. That we are b'koyach. There's a big chutza out there. We are Chassidus Yidden, Chassidus Balabatim, Shluchim. How do we make sure that the outside doesn't impact us? So I want to tell you something that I heard from my father and one of his experiences, which mamish boggles the mind. My father was born in a city in Poland, Krakow, and during the beginning of the war in 1940, in January, he ended up going to the east, to the Russian border, and he ended up in Siberia. After 1 year in Siberia, where his father died, he buried him, under a tree somewhere. He didn't even remember later on where it was, in a town, outside of a town. And then even before that, his mother was shot and 6 of his siblings were killed. You can just imagine a boy of 19, 20 years old, how he felt. Then, Baruch Hashem, after 1 year, he ended up, you all heard of this place, Samarkand, Uzbekistan, Samarkand, Tashkent. And in those places, you had a lot of refugees who ended up coming from Poland and ended up in these places. And you can just imagine, they all came with such a peckle on their shoulders, losing family members. There was famine. They didn't have what to eat. People were dying in the streets from hunger. People were from hunger. They didn't know what to do with themselves. Every day, there were people dying in the streets. My father told me he had an illness that at night, from malnutrition, he couldn't even see at night. At night he was blind. And one night he ended up in the house by mistake of an Uzbek, which was a local guy. And he walked into a room, there was some lantern, there was some light. And suddenly the guy sees a stranger in his house. He picked up a knife and he wanted to kill him. And come with miracles, he ended up running away and tripping and falling. But then there's one thing he told me which was unbelievable. He said it was in the time of about 1942, it was the 3rd year in the war. He said it was Mamish Cheshach. He's walking in the street one Motzei Shabbos, and he hears singing. Singing, he thought he's hallucinating, because from famine, from hunger, people were hallucinating. So he thought he's hallucinating. And as he was walking, getting closer to the sounds of singing were getting louder and louder. So finally he walks into like an apartment building, and he saw there was a door open, the singing is coming from there, and he walked into a room. In that room there were about 15 Chassidim sitting at the table. Reb Shmerel Batuma, Reb Peretz Mochkin, Reb Yud Daled Kislev. My father says in that room there was no war, there was no famine, there was nothing on the table, a poor bulbis, potatoes, and a bottle of chayim. That was all on the table. But the atmosphere in that room, it was a different reality. It was like a different world. From outside to inside was a total difference. This is the capability we have as Chassidim to change a reality. There's a big chutz out there. There's a confused world. People don't know how to talk, and people don't know how to dress, and everything. And we have to make sure that that doesn't come into our machne. How do we make sure it doesn't come into our machne? Because our reality, what is, you know that there was a big chassid, Rebbetzin, and he used to say that what we have to make sure is that Welt should be bipshitis. I'm sorry, Elokus should be bipshitis, and Welt should be bischatshis. That means in Yona Elam Hazeh should be something that we can hardly associate with. It's not our reality. It's not our world. Elokus is our world. What is the reality of a chassid? What is the reality of the Rebbe's a chassid? The Rebbe wanted that we should all be shluchim. What does it mean, all be shluchim? Yeah, some people get paid to be shluchim. But then there's some people, like the average people, that are chassidish balabatim. And what did the Rebbe want from the chassidish balabatim? Like the famous story about a chassid of the Alter Rebbe, that he made a sachakel eined movade. He made a total of whatever, he was a businessman, but by him, the sachakel, the total was eined movade. Our Eined Movade has to be the Rebbe's Mamorim, the Rebbe's Sichos. Whenever we have time, we walk to work with a pair of tefillin to be able to put on tefillin with another yid. That has to become our reality. That is Elokus B'Pshitis and Welt B'Schatshis. And by doing so, we change our reality, our family's reality. And the emes is, the Rebbe said that by doing so, we're really changing the world. So L'chaim, the Rebbe should help that Yud Daled Kislev of Shnas HaTishim should be different than every other year of Yud Daled Kislev. That this should be the Dover Chodesh of Yud Daled Kislev, that we're able to take his kashrus of the Rebbe to a new level, that the Rebbe should be by us a Rebbe de Gazach. It should be something that we eat and we live and we breathe with. And this is our reality. L'chaim, l'chaim, l'chaim.
L'chaim, l'chaim. Yitzchok, time.
I want to share with you a story of the Rebbe, which when I heard it, it was just mind-boggling. And that story brings out about the reality of the Rebbe in a very incredible way. My brother told me that he has a friend who lives in Borough Park, and he once walked into the house of one of his neighbors, who was a Polish Yid, an older gentleman, about 70 years old, and he saw in his house a picture of the Rebbe. And he couldn't believe it. Like, what do you have with a picture of the Rebbe? Like, you're a different chassid b'chal, and it doesn't appear that you have any connection with the Rebbe. What is going on? So he told him the following story. He said to him that many years ago, his daughter, which went to one of the Borough Park schools, unfortunately, she interacted with friends that were involved in inappropriate stuff. And make a long story short, that she started dating a guy. And as time went on, the relationship became very serious. First, the parents didn't know about it, and then they found out about it, and then she told them that, I want to marry this guy. And this father of hers, who was a Chassidish Yid, a different Chassid, a Chassidish Yid, thought literally the world is caving in on him. And he started to run from one Gutta Yid to another Gutta Yid, to the Belt, to whoever ran, to the Bavak or whatever. And they all gave him brachas, and they shrugged with their shoulders, So somebody told him, you have a Lubavitch Rebbe in town, in Crown Heights, 3-4 miles away, take your car, drive over there, and stand in line, bet beim Rebbe, whatever. So Al Kapanim, he said, he's not a Lubavitch, he doesn't even know how to do it, what to do. He said, stand in line, you get to your turn, and say what you got to say. He stands in line for 2 hours, and finally he gets to the Rebbe, and he's shaking a bit, and he tells the Rebbe, mein Tochter will chassen mit a Goye, weiß nicht was to tun, whatever. And a couple seconds. So the Rebbe takes out some dollars, and says, das $1 für euch, das $1 für die Tochter, und $1 für meaning the guy. Before he had even time to think, he was out the door already. And he's thinking, what is going on? And he knows for sure he's not a Yid. He's a emes a guy. In Kolapotem. And he didn't know what to do. He didn't know what to tell his wife. He's coming home, and he's like bewildered. It was like a 5-second interaction with the Rebbe, or a bit more. He doesn't know what to say. And his daughter, who did come into the house, and even the guy was in that house. So the next, and his daughter finds out that, the Rebbe blessed his shidduch with $1. That's how. So the next time she meets the guy, she tells the guy, I want you to know that the rabbi of all rabbis, Rabbi Schneerson, blessed our relationship. He says, what? You're still involved with those crazy rabbis? Get out of here, I don't want to know from you. And it all broke up. The funny thing was that this guy came into the house of the Yid, although he didn't want to look at him, But when he was confronted with Kedusha, with the Rebbe's $1, Tachlis HaKedusha, on one hand, and Tachlis HaKlippa, it became clear that he can't live with that. His aunt loved him. That was the Rebbe's $1. And this is only what we were zeiche from thousands of mikrim, in our town, Chicago. There's a lot of mishlochim come, and a lot of people come, visitors, and before you know it, everyone has a story of the Rebbe. I had a mishloch in shul, and he tells me, I can tell you a story of your Rebbe. I said, Rebbe, let's hear. He says he comes from Israel, and his wife had 7 miscarriages, and they told her, as he kenishnes abevern, that she cannot conceive and cannot have children. So at the end, he decided he's going to come to America, visit doctors, bring the case to file, and see maybe the American doctors can do something. He ends up coming to the United States, and he goes from one doctor to the other. They all basically told him the same thing, that due to the information they have and the file, it's unfortunately she has a problem carrying the baby, and she can't conceive, and even if she does, she can't carry, whatever. So somebody told him, Gates of Lubavitch. Now, I have this story on my phone somewhere, because I asked him to repeat the story, and I'll take a video. And I did, and I asked him for the story, and I took the video. So he said he came with a friend, and the friend, presented him, he didn't know what to say, what to do, he was all confused. And the friend said, so the Rebbe said, "Una bas tchila schlecht." There's nothing wrong with a bas tchila. And he tells me, "Ich habe bas tchila, ich habe a Stub viel mit Kinder, Baruch Hashem." He has a household full of children and so on and so forth. We can sit all night and tell stories of the Rebbe. It was the Baal Shem Tov Shibud HaReinu. That's what we're talking about. Baal Shem's K'maises. Lately, they had on a video where a fellow is asking for a bracha for children, and he's a smart guy, and he asked the Rebbe, "Can I buy a vegele? Can I kaufen a vegele? Can I buy a stroller? Can I buy a crib?" And the Rebbe says, "Yeah." I don't know the end of the story, but the vadois, and the Rebbe gives him $1, and he says, "Yeah, you can buy your crib." I mean, we saw Dvarim Ufloim, but at the end of the day, we have to ask ourselves, how does it talk to us? Of course, the Rebbe gepavet mofser. But the question is, does it talk to us? Can we tap into that? And the answer is yes. And the Rebbe told us how to tap into that. I found him in his kashrus, what to learn. Limutei Rosei Shavarav. They say that Reb Nissen once walked, Reb Nissen, the celebrated chassid, once walked into the Rebbe, and he asked the Rebbe about his kashrus. The Rebbe said, "You should learn what I'm learning now." And he asked the Rebbe, "What is the Rebbe learning now?" So the Rebbe told him the Mamorim of the Rebbe Marash. So through him, it's the Mamorim of the Rebbe Marash. But through learning the Mamorim of the Rebbe Marash, it became a kusha to the Rebbe. It was the first Tes Kislev and Yud Kislev of Tafshin Yud, something similar, where the Rebbe said that by saying L'chaim, and saying a word from the Balei Lulav of Tes Kislev, it's like giving opinion to the Balei Lulav of Tes Kislev, to the Mittler Rebbe. So the Rebbe bewarned right away. What do you mean we're not Chassidim of the Mittler Rebbe? We're Chassidim of the Rebbe. So the Rebbe explained that, of course, this is all b'kayach of the Rebbe that we're doing this. So learning Chassidus, and learning Chassidus every Shabbos morning, Cheder, because the Rebbe wanted we should learn the Chassidish Parsha. And if we do these things, we become a kusha to the Rebbe. So all of these in Yonim Gedalim that we read stories of the Rebbe, of course, we have to read them and read them to the Mishpacha and tell them that, yes, Rebbe B'Yisrael, there's an Eyel, and people are sending Pidyanis to the Eyel, and some people are reading Ikris Kodesh and getting Atracha from Ikris Kodesh, and there are beautiful things happening. But you have to make sure that it's not a sipo about somebody else. It's dein Tate, it's unser Tate. It's about us. It's not about somebody else, about another thing. There's an interesting sikha of the Frierdiker Rebbe. The Frierdiker Rebbe talks the difference between his kashrus, kesher, and chibur. Kesher means, so he explains, l'chayr, it means the same thing, bonding. When you bond one thing with another thing. So what's the difference between kesher and chibur? So the Frierdiker Rebbe explains that his kashrus and making a kesher means that you have two separate mitzias and you bind them together, but it's noticeable where you brought them together. You're talking about two begodim that you sew together, there's a seam. That seam is noticeable. Then there's chibur. Chibur means to that extent that you can't even notice where they're coming together. It becomes one mitzias. The Rambam says in Hilchos Deis, as a chochem is nika, bihiluchai, bimacholai, bishtiyosai, bihiluchai. The whole mitzias of a chochem, of a yid, is nika in how he conducts himself. It's not that so half a day is a Rabben Adam and a chochem, the other half a day is a per Adam. It means that his whole mitzias is a mitzias of a chochem. His eating, his sleeping, the lashon hayem yem, od geit a chassid, od shteit a chassid, v'chulu v'chulu. That a chassid is not somebody that does something once a day, and from that once a day, he's identifying with chassidim. No one ever saw a demonstration of people identifying with the human race. You identify with something that's not you. No one demonstrates to identify with the human race because we are human. A behemoth maybe can do something that appears to be identifying with a human race. We're humans and we don't identify with a human race. The Rebbe wanted that the Metzias from a chassid should be kol kulei, mamish like the Rambam says, b'macholei, b'shtiyosei, b'yichulei, v'chulu, v'chulu. And by doing so, that is what means is kashrus to the Rebbe. Of course, the Rebbe points out the Daled is kashrus. But today, especially after Gimel Tammuz, medaf leben mit dem Rebbe. What does it mean leben mit dem Rebbe? Learning the Rebbe's Amaimer, learning the Rebbe's Asicha, Azar Hibri Sichis. You take a look at the Rishimis from Rebbe. Recently, they gave out such a yon in the floor, Chelik Tesvav of the Igris of the Friedrich Rebbe. It was mamish like Mayim Karim al Nefesh HaYefa. These are the Rishimis. The Rishimis is the handwritten things that the Rebbe wrote himself. In Yonim Mufloim B'Yesa. How it's nicker. And these were the only svarim that the Rebbe left in his desk before Gimel Tammuz. And that's the only thing they found. And on top of the desk was the pictures, the albums of the Shluchim. But in Divrei Torah, this is what the Rebbe left in his desk. And it's obvious why the Rebbe didn't give it out before. Because before, if the Rebbe would have given out, you see Poshet how the Friedrich Rebbe pointed to him and did things with him that he is the Nasi, that he is the next Nasi. I mean, if you read it, it's just incredible things over there. There's a whole Yaman, several pieces of a Yaman, they turned it into one volume. The Rebbe's in Yonim are as Ashira Shein Kameyu. Lately, somebody told us some interesting story of the Rebbe that the Rebbe once spoke, Ki Yedua the Wort from Friedrich and Rebbe wegen G'dolach Nosse Sorge. So when they were Mesada the Sicher in his fathers, they didn't know, they looked, they never heard that the Friedrich Rebbe said something about G'dolach Nosse Sorge. So somebody came up with the following story. I might say, it's a beautiful story. That in Tafshin Zion, when the Rebbetzin came to New York, so the Friedrich Rebbetzin, the Chamedine, she made a Kabbalah's ponem for the Rebbetzin. Who did she invite? The elder Chassidim. Rabbi Eliyahu, Rabbi Shmuel, Rabbi Simpson, Rabbi Jacobson. She invited the whole slew, Rabbi Rifkin of the elder Chassidim. Now the Rebbe was there, but the Friedrich Rebbe was in his room. Was in his Yechidus room, and the Rebbetzin was there, and she prepared a table. The Rebbetzin, the Chamedina was there. She prepared a table with cakes, with fruits. And here you have the older Chassidim. They're going to eat cake and fruit in the Friedrich Rebbe's house. It wasn't shaykh. Shmuel was going to start eating from a plate cake. It wasn't shaykh, the whole thing. And the Rebbe noticed that they're uncomfortable. So the Rebbe walked over to them and called them over, and he said, I want to tell you a story. He said, I once came to my shver in Atvatz, and it was in the morning. In other words, he was there at Meshach Zman. It was in the morning, and the shver asks me, the Rebbe said, that he wants to pay a return visit to Apelu Shagutarid. In those days, if Apelu Shagutarid came to visit the Friedrich Rebbe, it was the norm of the other Gutayid, and in this case, the Friedrich Rebbe should pay a return visit to that Gutayid. So the Rebbe says to the elder Chassidim, my shver asked me to accompany him to another Gutayid, Fatzik Bazuch. He says, when we came there, it was already after davening, Shachris, und sich gewähnt nach Hatiken, und der Tische gewähnt full. The table was already full from food, from leftovers of food and everything after a ticket. So the Gutayid noticed that the Friedrich Rebbe walked in, and I'm there, the Rebbe is relating this. So he asked the Friedrich Rebbe and the Rebbe to come up front and sit near him. Then he summons the Gabbe, and he tells the Gabbe, bring den Ticken. So weißt du, he walks into the kitchen, and he had a long kapote, and he comes back to the table, and in his kapote, he had a lot of fruits. apples and oranges. So what did he do? He was standing at the other end of the table. That's what the Rebbe said. And he rolled up a couple of apples. So the Rebbe said, wenn es ist angekommen zu uns da, the Rebbe said, ich schon gewinn a sach mehr wie apple. When it arrived at the head of the table, there was much more than apple over there. So the Rebbe said, the schweres Aistenis, I knew he's not going to touch this. With all the stuff on the apple, he's not going to touch it. Then the Rebbe said, if that wasn't enough, the Gute Yid takes the apple, and he takes his hand and he goes, whammo, and he breaks it in half, and he takes one half for himself, and the other half geht dem schwer. The Rebbe said, jetzt hab ich gewusst, wird sicher nicht das. It wasn't even a question. He's not touching it. But the Rebbe said, gewollt sehen, what's going to sein? I wanted to see what's going to happen over here. Like, how is he going to manage this? The Gute Yid is giving him a kippah to eat, and what's he going to say? No. So he says, the Schwer hat gesagt, ich will auf sagen Advat Teure. The Schwer said, I want to say Advat Teure. So the Gute Yid said, I don't know, go ahead. So he says, he steht, the Meis in Vayera, that we learn out, Vayorotz, the Gemara learns out, that he was running towards the angels, and he left HaKadosh Baruch who revealed himself to him, Yen Shlishi Limila. And from here we learn out, G'day Lachna Zezachim Yosem Mekabolas B'nei Ashkina. So the obvious question, the Friedrich Rebbe said, G'day Lachna Zezachim Yosem, and if it's going to be exactly like Kabbalas B'nei Ashkina is schlecht, what does it have to be Yosem Mekabolas B'nei Ashkina? So the Shver hat gesagt, as Kabbalas B'nei Ashkina was in the Beis HaMikdash. Meshulchan Gavoya Kazachu, they ate from the Korban Shlomim, the Koyanim ate, the Bailam ate, haben alle gegessen. Yosem Mekabolas B'nei Ashkina ist, wenn man sagt, Advat Teure. Und bei dem hat das geblieben, hat nicht gegessen und he didn't eat. So he was Yosef, he explained that Yosef Mekabolas B'nei Ashkina is when you deliver Advat Teure. And that was the end. And that you can read in one of these Vadas, and they have it in the Ha'orah, how, because the Rebbe said over there, ki yedu the word from Shver of Yosef Mekabolas B'nei Ashkina. You have a Eitzer in this Vadas, in the Sichis, and in the Mamorim, and in the Rishimis. It's Pashta Eitzer. And we have to know that it has to be, this is our Mayim Karama in Nefesh HaYefa. This is the nourishment we need in Zman HaGolus. And we got to live with that. And if we live with that, our reality changes. The gas is a gas. There's a famous story about Rebbetzin the Masmet. I heard this from many years ago, before the dancing in the street. We used to sukkahs. What did we do sukkahs in New York? We were Bachram. Went to Farbrengen, Mendel, Rebbe Yitzchok. So I once fell into a sukkah. There was Batel Rivkin and others. So they obviously knew Rebbetzin the Master. So they related the following story, that it was Ben Kessel Aser before Yom Kippur, and Rebbetzin was Farbrengen, and he said L'chaim, and again L'chaim, and a ganze Nacht hat gemacht, all night he was asking a very, very fundamental question. Such a great time that we're living in, Ben Kessel Aser, Kiruv Anitzot Salamor. It's a time that we feel close to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the Gilui of Yud Gimel Mitzvah Achmed. So a whole night he was asking the same question. If he could be nicht tshuva. Azag Gilui, how is it that we don't do tshuva? And a whole night he was asking the question with a different format, a different way. A ganze Nacht. It was in the wee hours of the morning. That's what they were relating. And Rebbetzin was already big luf. I mean, he was really, they had to take him home. So they took him home. And they were ready to deliver him into the house. So they said, Rebbetzin, a ganze Nacht gefragt, a Shaila, was in the tablets. All night you were questioning. Kiruv Anitzot Salamor, in that form. Why don't we do tshuva? For was me tut nicht tshuva? We will nicht. That's the answer. Why don't we do tshuva? We don't want. If we'd only want, everything would change. This is what the Rebbe taught us. I sometimes think, I want to bring you back a story what I had many years ago. It was the first time the Rebbe spoke about Limud Gemara for girls. The first time. For Meidlach, for Noshim. So I'm sitting in my office, I was already in Chicago. I think it was Mem Gimel, Mem Daled in those years. The Rebbe spoke a whole sikh. It was printed in the Allgemeine Journal. I get a call from Rabbi Fishman, the head of Cheder and he asked me, is it true that in your school you teach girls Gemara? And we did. We started to take Agadatis and things in Brachas, Birchas, Hashacha, easier in Yonim than Gemara with girls. So he asked me, is it true? I said, yes. And what about Kilo Malamdam Tiflis? It's a Gemara that if you teach girls how to learn Torah, it's as if you're teaching them, whatever. So I said, listen, Rabbi Fishman, I knew who he was. I want to tell you where I grew up. I grew up in Montreal. On one side of my street, there were Belzer, Mitzatmer, Metalasot, Mechsidim. On the other side, there were Litvisher. And you know what we had to go through? The Chassidische was saying, you guys interact with Balatshuvas, with Fire Yidden. Why are you interacting with evil people? That's what they told us. And the people, the Litvisher, were telling us, Bittul Torah. What happened? 20 years later, you guys are always 20 years behind. Suddenly, you want to rewrite history. That you are the guys, the founders of the Kiruv movement. It takes you guys 20 years. I said, do me a favor. We're going to meet in 20 years. Put it in your calendar. And then you will see that your curriculum in your schools are identical to mine. And you teach them Torah Sheba'al Peh. You teach them everything that I teach them. And this is how the conversation ended. I was hoping the day that I will meet this guy again, the head of Torah. I heard later on he had a kviz with Rebbe Yael. Der Rebbe hat geholfen. 25 years later, in Chicago, they honored a seasoned mechanech who was going to retire, Reb Dov Liebenstein. He's a known mechanech. Wow. Oh, you didn't meet him? Okay. Well, he retired. And they were making the Associated Talmud Torahs, the umbrella organization of all the schools, were going to make a banquet honoring Reb Dov Liebenstein. Then I seen the invitation, guest speaker, Rabbi Fishman, Torah Messiah. I take the telephone, I call the Associated Talmud Torahs, please reserve 2 seats for me and my wife. I want to be there. So the dinner is going on, and he's going to be the guest speaker. I walk over to him. I said, Rabbi Fishman, Shalom Aleichem, did you bring your desk calendar of this year? He looks at me, doesn't know what I'm talking about. I said, I want to tell you who I am. He spoke 25 years ago, and I told you that your curriculum, look, he looks at me, oh, you're Rabbi Wolf. And that's Taka then. That's Taka what happened. The Rebbe, whether it's Baal Tshuva movement, the Rebbe changed the reality. Today you see the Lashonos that the Litvish and Rosh Yeshivas talk about Mashiach, I'll tell you a story about Mashiach. It was Tov Shidun, Gimel, and Daled, where everyone was talking, the Rebbe Mashiach, the Rebbe Mashiach. And the whole world was talking about it. So we have a fellow that became the biggest sponsor and philanthropist of our school, Mr. Seymour J. Abrams. If you look him up, he died 2 years ago. But the OU building, Yerushalayim, is on his name. He was the president of the federation in Chicago. So I'm sitting in his office, because he gave us a lot of money, and we named the school after him. And in walks the fundraiser of Skokie Yeshiva, Beis HaMedrash LaTorah, which is a yeshiva that's not on the right and not on the left. They're like in the center, Orthodox, a bit modern, they want to be a bit Litvish and a bit modern. They want everything. And they do serve a certain, members of the community that are towards that leaning. So the fundraiser comes in and he sees me sitting opposite of this Mr. Abrams, and he says, you give money to these guys? You know what they're saying? They're saying they're Rebbe's Mashiach. So Mr. Abrams looks him in the eye, he says, that's one thing you can't say about your Rebbe. By him, it was like so kosher. I hardly talked to him about Mashiach because it was a double, Rebbe's Mashiach and Farbrengen, the God of the way he understood it. The Rebbe changed the reality. That a Simer Abrams, came Zayn over like that, the Rebbe Mashiach. It wasn't like such a, he didn't faint. He said, what do you have? You have nothing. If the Welt knows it, then of course we gotta know. We gotta know the treasure that we have. Sometimes you sit in our Schmaltzklub, and we don't see that we're sitting in our Schmaltzklub. We're sitting in our Schmaltzklub. So Al Kapanim, it's Yud Daled Kislev. Not over there. I still have 6 minutes. We gotta say L'chaim, everybody. This is unser Simcha. It's not somebody else's Simcha. It's our Simcha. It's our day of strengthening our Iskashus. L'chaim. time, everybody. So I guess there's a minyan. So then we have another minyan.
Oh,